Well, we're doing another day of math. I am your girl, Audrey Codner from Math by Tutoring. Let's try again. Math by Audrey, which was formerly known as ACG Math Tutoring. So, besides the rebranding, we are basically touching up on those concepts that you constantly see on the SAT, the ACT, the GED, any of the high school equivalency tests, the ASVAB if you're trying to raise your score. And I know for a fact a lot of people are doing TEAS tests or doing HESI tests, any of those standardized assessments. But for some reason, when it's time for you to study, you just really can't really connect with it. So then this is what happens. You have to take a test in order to either improve or maybe pursue a career that you want to do. So then they tell you that you have to take some kind of test, and you haven't seen this thing called algebra since you were, I don't know, in high school, or maybe you didn't even be able to go to high school. So now you're taking a look at concepts that either you've never seen before or you haven't seen in a long time. And then you're trying to apply your knowledge that you kind of have right now to a test that you are currently taking, and you're wondering why can I not pass this test? Because when you're taking the test, there's a lot of concepts there that you either forgot or you are mislearning. So that's why I'm here to kind of help with make that whole transition, and to also give you, not really give you, but give you an opportunity of a resource that I created that is going to help you through step by step. Now, when I do my lives, I'm not doing anything in a particular order. There are some things I do algebra, and there's going to be some things that we're doing today in geometry, which is the most famous geometry concept that a lot of people love to do, the Pythagorean Theorem. Yes, we're doing Pythagorean's Theorem. And here's my thing. There's going to be certain concepts that's mixed in with the Pythagorean Theorem that we need to get straightened out. And this is probably the little 2 steps that you need in order to pass that score. Now, if you're taking the GED, this is definitely a 4-point question. So you do not want to miss out on this live. All right, let's flip over to the magical world of document camera. Okay, so here we go. With the Pythagorean Theorem, and a lot of us remember as a squared plus b squared equals c squared. The first mistake a lot of people do is they forget the formula. They forget to put the squares. Okay, they're like a plus b equals c. That's one thing. And the other thing that a lot of people generally get mixed up is, what does A represent, what does B represent, and what does C represent? So the one thing I want to tell you is the C is your longest side. Now, you're not going to try to whip out a ruler and measure, like, let me see which side is my longest side. No, we ain't got all time for that. Get that out of there. We're going to use that later. But how you can tell it's the longest side is based off of the largest angle. You're only using the Pythagorean Theorem for right triangles. How do I know it's a right triangle? Because this little box right here, this is telling me that the measure of this angle is 90 degrees. Okay? Now, the one thing you need to know about triangles, that the sum of the 3 angles, if I add all 3 of these angles up, it will equal 180 degrees. And that means if this is 90, that means the sum of these 2 angles have to equal 90, because 90 plus 90 gives me 180. Alright? So that means this is not going to be 90. Okay? Is it possible for this to be, I don't know, like 87? Yes. And this one could be 3? Sure. Okay? It's not going to look like this, but that's the thing about geometry. You can't trust your eyes. So, wherever you see that 90-degree angle, the side opposite that, that's going to be your C. Okay, so the side opposite that 90-degree angle, no matter if the triangle is shaped like this, or if the triangle is turned around like that, or if your triangle, getting all kinds of crazy, if your triangle is kind of featured to you like that, or like that, no matter where that 90-degree angle is, when you go opposite, that's always going to be your longest side. Okay? Not the hypothesis, but Sierra, I see you. You're thinking. I love it. Okay? So this is called the hypotenuse. So you were close. Okay? I see where you were going with it. Alright? So your longest side is called the hypotenuse. So that's going to be your C from the a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now, these other two sides, there's a name for it. And a lot of exams are starting to use this name. The name is, it's a leg. Okay? This side and this side. These two sides are called legs. Okay? They're called legs. So, I'm starting to see a lot of people with the standardized test that they're saying the hypotenuse is this and the leg is this. And people are like, what the hell is a leg? Where's the leg coming from? Right? So, knowing that terminology, now you can say, alright, if they're saying hypotenuse and they're saying legs, that means I'm dealing with a right triangle. So now, the thing that we need to know is that the sides are interchangeable. So it doesn't matter if you're plugging it into the equation, it doesn't matter if this side's going to represent your A or if this side's going to represent your A. Doesn't matter, you pick a side, you plug it in. Alright? But the one thing that you definitely need to know is that the side directly across from your 90-degree angle is always going to be your C. Okay? That's always going to be your C. So, now, let's take a look at this problem. So what's happening is that we're missing the length of this side. But we have one of the legs and we have our hypotenuse. So if we plug it in, so our original equation is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Alright? So when we plug in, doesn't matter which one's my a and my b. So if I want to, I can say 6 squared plus my unknown side. If you want to keep it as a b squared, you can. Equals my c squared. Alright? So 1, you had to know the formula. Thanks, Mick. 2, hello, Miss Lewis. You have to know what to plug in. Now, this is the third thing that people tend to get wrong. We're not comfortable with our exponents. Okay? A lot of people will say, oh, this is 12 and this is 24, and they'll keep going. And trust me, the result of that will be one of the options of the multiple choice. But we have to understand that 6 squared means 6 times 6. And 6 times 6 gives me 36. I bring down my b squared. Now we're going to the 12 squared. So 12 times 12. 12 times 12, that's one of those perfects, which gives us 144. Okay. Thank you, Evelyn. I see you. Alright. So now we need to solve this for b. We're not solving it for b squared. We're going to isolate it to b squared. But the ultimate goal is we want to know what b is, what the length of this side is. So now, what should we do next so we can reach that goal of solving for b. This is another mistake some people do. Okay, what do you think? Okay, what should we do next? And you can put it in the chat, and if you're not sure, you can put a question mark. Okay, so Mick, I see you, thank you, and also thanks for the follow. Okay, Miss Lewis, I see you, not the 46, but I think I see what you're saying. Okay, is that Sterna? I see you. Ranch Boy, I see you twice. Flocka, I see you. Okay, Lily, okay, join in with the Mick crew, yes, I see you. Okay, is it Kwasi? Wasi? Okay, got you. Okay, say, I see you. Yes. So now, we want to isolate our b squared. So what we're going to do, we're going to subtract our 36 on both sides. So 36 minus 36, and the reason why we subtract the 36 because the signage of the 36, which is in front to the left of the number, is positive. I do not see a minus sign here. So I have to do its inverse, which is minus 36. So 36 minus 36 will give me 0. But I don't need 0 as a placeholder because I still have my b squared on the same side of the equal sign. Okay? So now, 144 minus my 36, that will give me my 108, because we borrowed here from the 3. Now that 4 is now 14. And we have our 108. Okay? Now, yes. So now we need to do the opposite or the inverse of b squared. Okay? So we have, now we're going to have to do the square root. That's the part that also a lot of people will do everything right until here. Because then you're like, all right, well, how do I get the square? Well, the opposite of a square is a square root. Okay? Not a circle. Like a lot of, what's the opposite of a square? A circle, and they'll look at me dead ass and say, a circle. No, and you're a junior in high school. Stop it. All right, so the opposite of a square is a square root. They cancel each other out. So now we have our b. So I can bring down my square root of 108. Audrey, the mathematician. Yeah, far from it. So now, square root of 108. Now I know 108 because I understand my squares. Square root of 108 is not a perfect square root. So it's not like I can break it down and get a whole number. Because if you try to use a calculator, this is definitely going to give you a decimal. So this is where I have to pause. Because here's another concept that's being held in here. So we did some with exponents. We looked at the difference of squares and square roots. Now we're going to be breaking down the square root of 108. Okay? A number cannot cancel a symbol. Okay? So, if anything, so we have the square root of 108. But, since we can't get a whole number out of it, we could, and if you know your facts, and this is how you can test it out. If I know my square roots, I know that, say, the square root of 100, and I have the square root of 121. I know that 108 is going to fall between those two. Okay? I know that for a fact. Yes, Felix, I see you. And Gigi, I see you as well. Okay? So if I know my perfect square roots, my perfect squares, because I know the square root of 100 is 10. Because 10 times 10 gives me 100. I know the square root of 121 is 11. Because 11 times 11 gives me 121. And the square root of 108 is going to fall somewhere in between here. So if they show you as decimals, which will be crazy because some of these exams you cannot use a calculator. But this is one thing you can do to kind of estimate. You know it's going to be more than 10, but it's going to be less than 11. All right? So that's one thing. So if they do give you decimals, you know it's going to be between 10 and 11. Now, as a fraction, not a fraction, as a square root, we can factor it. What two numbers, one being perfect and the other being a prime number, we can use as square roots to physically break it down. What are two numbers multiplied together? One will be a perfect square root, and the other will be a prime number. Okay, what are we thinking? So we've got 9 and 12. All right, so we can do 9 and 12, but 12 is not a prime number. So that means there's a higher perfect that we can use. So someone told me it's 16. 16 and what? Because if you try to do 16, as long as I didn't get any answers. Okay. So what are we summarizing? We're breaking down the square root of 108. Okay. Right? Well, 16 times 7, that's not going to give us our 108. Okay. But Peyton's telling me 36 and 3. That can work because 36 is a perfect square root and 3 is a prime. 16 times 8 doesn't give me 108. Okay? It has to be something that two numbers that you multiply. 8 and 5 does not give me 108. This is like confirming the reason why we got to do this. Alright? So, if you do 9 times 12, 9 and 12, neither one of them is a prime number. So that's telling me that we need to also work on prime numbers. A prime number only has factors of 1 in itself. So the first prime number is actually 2, not 1. 1 is not a prime number. But if I take my 36, I do get my 3. Because 36 times 3 gives me 108. Okay? So now the square root of 36, that is a perfect square root, which gives us 6. And when it's a perfect square root, it's no longer underneath the radical. But the square root of 3, well, square root of 3, that's a prime number. So if you can't break it down, you simply bring it down. So if they're trying to give you a decimal and you can't use a calculator, try to figure out roughly where would the square root of 108 be. It will fall between 100 and 121. So if you try to put in your calculator, it's going to give you 10 point something. But if they give it to you in radical form, you need to figure out what two numbers multiplied together will give us 108. One of them being a perfect square root and the other one being a prime number. Okay? So it is the square root of 36 gives me that whole number of 6, but that square root of 3 cannot be broken down because 3 is a prime number. So if you can't break it down, you simply bring it down. So that's telling me we found B. So this side of B is 6 square root of 3 feet. Yeah, you missed a lot. Okay, but I'm going to do a couple more. Alright, so when it comes to radicals, the Pythagorean Theorem has a mixture of things going on. One, you have to understand anything about exponents. Two, you have to know how to solve an equation by isolating our variable. Three, you needed to know the inverse of a square is a square root. Okay. 4, you needed to know how to break down a square root, especially when it's not a perfect square root. And then 5, you really have to understand our multiplication facts. And I'm going to add number 6, knowing what a prime number is. Okay, all that wrapped up in one. Okay. All right. So, trying to go for the next one. So the next one is like a word problem. But we're going to translate it, and then we're going to solve it. All right. Okay. So, taking a look. We got Marcus walked 6 miles due north, then turns, walks 8 miles due east to get back to the park. If he takes a straight line shortcut, that's supposed to be a cut, back to his starting point, how many miles will he walk on his own first? Now, like I said with word problems, what are we trying to find? How many miles? Okay, how many miles will he walk? But they gave us a directive. So they said 6 miles due north, then he walks 8 miles due east. So first thing, we need to know our direction. And if you're going to be like, Audrey, seriously? Yes. Especially this last year, yes. A lot of our students do not know their north, south, east, and west. Sad, but true. Okay. All right. So now, if we're starting at one point, this is why I like to have points. If we're starting here, and they're saying we're going 6 miles due north, so that means we're coming upwards. Okay. I flung my ruler across the room, sorry. Okay, so we're going 6 miles north, so this is 6. Then turns and walks 8 miles due east. Okay, so what they want to know is if they took a straight shot. This. Okay. Alright. So this is what they want to do. So here we go. What you just drew is a right triangle. This right here is supposed to be your 8 miles. So they want to know what this is. So as I mentioned before, we're going to take a look, looking across from that 90-degree angle. Anything that's directly opposite your 90-degree angle is going to be your hypotenuse, aka this is your C. So what was given to us was the two legs. Alright? So, yes, Pythagorean Theorem. So we are doing a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So as I mentioned earlier, the two legs are interchangeable. These are your A's and the B's. It doesn't matter which one's going to represent your A and which one's going to represent your B. But your longest side is always your C. And how do you know it's your longest side? It goes opposite your 90-degree angle. Okay? So now we're filling in. So we can have 6 squared plus 8 squared equals our unknown squared. Okay. All right. So now, when we have our 6 squared, that means 6 times 6. So 6 times 6 will give us our 36. Our 8 squared is 8 times 8. So 8 times 8, that gives us our 64. Okay. Then we just bring in our equals and our x squared. Okay. So the main thing is we need to understand the exponents so we can get to this slot. There you go. There you go, Autumn. So now 36 plus 64, that gives us 100. And you bring down your equals x squared. So now the inverse or the opposite of x squared is going to be square root. So once we do the square and the square roots, they are basically inverses of each other. They cancel each other out. So we have our x equals. So now we have that square root of 100. There we go, guys. Good. So our square root of 100, it's one of those perfect square roots, which we mentioned earlier, which gives you 10. So the length or the distance, if you did a straight shot instead of doing this, is going to be 10 miles. That's your answer. Okay. I do. Yep, should be there. If anything, check on my the one for TikTok lives. Okay. You do not know. You do not know what? What do you not know? Okay. Okay, you forgot how to calculate the square roots of a number. Okay. Yep. So it's like it really comes down to one, knowing your multiplication facts on how to break down the square roots. Okay, how to break down the square roots. Okay, most of this. Okay. And that's why I come on. I mean, I love when people are like, I don't know this. This is torture. I can't do it. Dude, seriously. That's why I'm here. If everyone knew it, this would not exist. We would not be here. We would be like, okay, whatever. That's cute. So the reason why I come here, and I still got a couple more problems, is I come on here for people that are going back to school or thinking about going back to school, and just breaking down these concepts step by step. Okay? So usually I come on live in the mornings, every day. Sometimes on Saturdays I'll try to come twice, but not this Saturday. I won't be here in the morning because I have a conference I have to go to, meaning I'm in the conference. But I try to break down these concepts that you haven't seen for a while, and that's probably stopping you from getting whatever you want to get out of life. You might have to take your GED. You might have to take your Accuplacer. You are maybe trying to get into the military and you're trying to raise that score so you can get a better opportunity. I want the best. You know, there's going to be people in here that's like, oh yeah, that's a Pythagorean triplet. Oh yeah, you know, you can't do this. And oh yeah, I put it in layman's terms. Okay? Hopefully you guys know what I'm talking about. I break down these concepts and I try to put them in layman's terms. Someone in a way that you can understand. I'm not worried about everybody else that's like, oh yeah, I take calculus. Good job. I'm so glad that you take calculus. Alright? So I know the description in the beginning. I say this is designed for 25 and up. Okay? People that are normally struggling with their basic maths and they just want an opportunity. So that's what I do. Okay? So if this is too slow for you, hey, thanks so much for coming. But this is not the lot for you. Okay? No? Oh no, you're not bad at math. Okay. Alright, well thank you. Not a problem. I'm not saying this to scorn or to make people feel bad. I'm saying that, you know, this is the reason why I put together my Algebra at Your Pace. And I named it that way because a lot of people are like, yeah, I'm going to go to community college. And then you go to college and the first day of class is, okay, you know, you got the nerves kicking in. But the second day of class, all of a sudden, they start picking up the speed. And the third day of class, they're already talking about midterms. And you're like, wait, this is the third class. It's not like high school. The pace is huge. Okay? The pace is huge. Right? So this is a safe space. Now, basic math is 1 plus 1, 1 plus 2, 2 plus 3, 6 times 4. That's basic math. Okay? This is the Pythagorean Theorem. So if this is above you, this is not the place for you. And I appreciate you stopping by. No need to insult. Okay? Thank you. Now, when we have Pythagorean's theorem, we know we have a 90-degree angle and we have a missing side. So, first off, figure out what is your longest side. And some people say, well, look at the numbers. Well, we don't know. This could be longer. We have no idea. Except for when you see your 90-degree angle, you go opposite that. This will be your hypotenuse. And the hypotenuse is always going to be your C. So when you bring in Pythagorean's theorem, you have your a squared plus b squared equals c squared. There's a whole history lesson on that, but right now, this is not what I'm here for, okay? Yep, math does build on itself. So, these two sides, as I said, when you look at a lot of the standardized assessments, they're using the terminology, the legs. So now when you see that on the test, you're not like, what does my leg have to do with anything? No. They're talking about the sides, the other sides opposite the hypotenuse of a triangle, of a right triangle. These are called your legs. These are representing your A and your B. So it doesn't matter, okay? So if anything, we have our x squared plus our 28 squared is equal to our c squared. Okay. All right, here we go. All right, so now, first thing, never forget the squares. Okay, never forget the squares. So we're going to be dealing with larger numbers. So we have our 28 squared. So that means, I'm going to put it down here, that's going to be our 28 times our 28. So some of these exams you cannot use a calculator. So we're going to have to figure it out. So 8 times 8 gives us 64. Carry the 6. Okay, 2 times 8 gives me 16 plus the 6 gives me, what, 22? So, excuse me. So we have 8 times 2 gives me 16. Carry the 1. So 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 gives us 5. And since we're multiplying, we're making things bigger, so we're going to add. So now you have your 4. 6 and 2 is 8. 5 and 2 is 7. So that means 28 squared is the same as 28 times 28. That gives us our 784. Okay. So here we have our unknown squared. And the reason why I chose that, because that's the unknown side. This could have been your B. This could have been your A. They're interchangeable. It doesn't matter which one's going to be the A and which one's going to be the B. Okay? So now we have our 784 is equal to our 35 squared. So 35 squared does not mean 35 times 2. So it's 35 times 35. So 5 times 5, carry the 2. 5 times 3 is 15, plus 2 is 17. Then we have 3 times 5. That gives us 15, carry the 1. 3 times 3 is 9, plus 1 is 10. And we're going to add these together. So you have your 5, you have your 12, carry the 1, that'll be your 2, and this is 1. So it gives you 1,225. Okay. So now that we've done this part, now we can focus back here. We want to get the x by itself. That's the ultimate goal when we're solving. So what do we have to do? So we're going to track the 784 on both sides. Good. We're going to subtract the 784 on both sides. Alright. So that means my 784s are going to cancel out. And what comes down is going to be my x squared, because I don't need the 0 as a placeholder for this, because I still have the x squared that needs to come down. So now let's subtract, and what do we get here? 5 minus 4, that gives us 1. I'm going to borrow from this 12 to make it into 11. Now I make that 2 into a 12. 12 minus 8, that gives me 4. And then 11 minus 7, that gives me 4. Okay. So now, next to the last, we need to do the inverse of x squared. So the inverse of x squared is the square root. So when I do the square and the square root, they're inverses of each other. They cancel each other out. So now we have our x, and that's our goal. We're trying to get that x by itself, which we're doing. And now we got the square root of 441. Okay? The whole thing now. Yes, queen. There we go. So now we have to know our squares. So square root of 441, that's actually a perfect square root. That gives us 21. Now I know some people would say, oh, well, Audrey, you should do plus or minus. Well, I get it. When you're solving, you're going to have like two solutions. I get that. But does it make sense to have a negative length of a side? No. Okay? So you're going to have a positive length of a side. That's why most instructors just focus on the positive when you're doing your Pythagorean Theorem. Okay? Exactly, Brad. Thank you. Okay? Yep. But see, a lot of people don't know the Pythagorean triples, bruh. Okay? So that's why let's do something that everyone at least knows so they can get all that stuff out with less memorization. Okay? You're asking people to learn all of algebra in a matter of weeks. Not possible. Okay? Alright? Okay? Of course there's a much easier way. There's multiple ways, Brett. There's multiple ways. Okay? And it's not wrong. Thank you. Alright? So, just because there's multiple ways, you don't want to do like a whole bunch of memorization tricks because it's just going to throw you off. But if you know the process, then you can do the tricks. Because a lot of you guys are trying to study and memorize the tricks, but you don't know why that's a trick. And then when it's time for you to take the test, you're going to continue to get the same results that you're getting. It's a psychological thing. So learning and then developing the tricks, that's one thing. And especially if you're taking a standardized test that has multiple choice, you're going to be able to look at your answers. And sometimes those answers really do give you the clue. And you might not have to do all of this work. Okay, so if I know there's 28, and if this is 35 as my longest side, and if my answer choice is a 45, is an 11, is a 36, a negative 14, I know, they always put some silly question on there, and then the true answer is 21, well, obviously the 45 I'm going to get rid of because the 35 is my longest side, so that's gone. The negative answer, we can't have a negative length of a side, so that's gone. So now you're between the 11 and the 21. So once you do this, and if you know your 11 squared is 121, and you're getting a 441, then your answer is a 21. Okay? Alright? Okay? So then what's the right answer, love? Alright? I think I know what the right answer is. This. Okay? Alright? So, sometimes your answer key is going to show you. Okay? Alright? Questions? No, it's just a person that has no love of Jesus in their life. You know what I'm saying? Okay? So, Now, let me throw one more question at you. And they always love to do this on the test. They always like to do the TV screen. To say you have like a TV screen. Oops, shorten that a bit. So they'll say, oh, the dimensions of a TV screen is blank and blank, and they want you to find the length of the screen itself. So say that, I know this is really big, so say that this is 8.2, and this is like, could be a computer screen, 11.3 inches. Okay, so this is basically the modem itself, but they want you to find this. They want you to find the diagonal. Okay, this is for what test? The GED, ASVAB, Accuplacer. Okay. I don't know. Yeah, without a calculator is. So, if they're saying these are your dimensions. Now, it kind of looks like a square, but looking at the measurements, this isn't a square. This is a rectangle. And what do we know about rectangles? They have 90-degree angles. Each of these angles is 90 degrees. But we're not looking at the whole entire thing. We're only looking at part of it. Yes, Autumn's got it. So if I cover up like this, look what we have. We have a right triangle. So they want us to figure out what is the length of that side. So again, what are we doing? Pythagorean Theorem. So we can pick our two legs, which is going to be the A, which is going to be the B. It doesn't matter. Now, something like this, yes, with the decimals, are they going to show it as decimals for, especially for GED and the high school equivalency? No, that's crazy. But are they going to show it as decimals for the Accuplacer, for people that are going to try to go back to school and you had to take an Accuplacer to see which math it is? Yes, they are. And guess what? You can't use a calculator for the Accuplacer. I know, sinister. Here we are. But this is what we got to do, kiddos. So let's get it done. So we have our a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So we can say that, we can say 8.2 squared plus 11.3 squared is equal to my unknown. If you want to keep it as a c squared, you can. Alright, so now 8.2 squared. Here we go. 8.2 times 8.2. So you have your 2 times 2, that gives you 4. 2 times 8, that gives you 16. 8 times 2, that gives us 16. Carry the 1. 8 times 8 gives you 64 plus 5. That gives me 65. Add those two together. You got your 4. 12, carry the 1. 6, 1 makes 7. And 6. So, multiplying with a decimal. So that's another thing. This is 1 decimal place. This has also 1 decimal place. How many decimal places you need is going to be 2. Because when you're multiplying with decimals, you have to add the placeage. That's how you figure out what's supposed to be here in your answer. Okay? So now we're starting here at the end, moving over 1, 2, so that means that decimal point needs to be between the 7 and the 2. Okay? So now we have our 67.24. Okay? So that takes care of our 8.2 squared. Plus, now we have to do the 11.3 squared. So we're practicing multiplying. We're practicing. The only time that you line up the decimals is when you're adding and subtracting. When you're multiplying, you're basically adding how many decimal places there are so you can get with your answer. Okay? Alright? Yes, and a lot of people don't like fraction spread, so that's fine. So where we go, we have our 11.3 times 11.3. Okay, so 3 times 3 gives me 9. 3 and 1 is 3. 3 and 1 is 3. Now we got our 1 times 3. That's going underneath the 10 spot. And we got 1 and 1. Then we have the next one. We're going down to the 100 spot. So this is 3, 1, and 1. So bring down your 9. 3 and 3 is 6. 3 and 3 is 6 plus 1 is 7. 1 and 1 is 2. Bring down our 1. So let's take a look. We are 1 decimal place here, 1 decimal place here, so that means our answer should have 2 decimal places. Starting at the end, going 1, 2. So our decimal place should be between the 7 and the 6. Okay. Alright. Hey, Big G Money. How are you? So, coming up to here, we got our 127.69. And that's going to equal our C squared. So now, we got to add these two together. I know, it's all kinds of cray-cray, but we're making it through. So since we're adding them together, we just have to line them up. So it's going to be down here. So I got my 127 and 69 hundredths. We have our 67.24. So since, I'm right here on the cusp of it, since we're adding our decimals up, that's why we got to line up our decimals. Okay? So we have our 9 plus 4, that gives us 13. Carry the 1. 6 and 2 and 8 plus 1 is 9. Bring down the decimal point. 7 and 7 is 14. Carry the 1. So that's 8, that's 9, and that's 1. So we're looking at 194.93 is equal to our C squared. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Autumn. Alright. So now we want to get our C. We don't want to know what C squared is. We want to get our C so we have a better idea of what the length of the side is. So we're not looking at it as a rectangle. We're looking at it as a right triangle. Okay? So in order for us to get our C by itself, we have to do the square root, because the inverse of a square is a square root. they're inverses of each other, they will cancel out. So then we have our C equals. Now, I can tell you if you did the Accuplacer, they will probably leave it as a square root with this decimal. It looks funky, but if we're able to use a calculator because of the decimal, what would our answer be? So we can say the square root. Now, if you're trying to use a calculator on your Apple phone, they always have it as this symbol. It's like a radical with a 2 for the index. So this is what the button looks like if you're trying to use it on your phone. Okay? So, I don't have this in the top of my head, so I'm going to try 194, 193. So we're going to definitely round it. I want to say to the 1000th position. So if I'm rounding, this is when you use the approximation symbol. Okay? The waves means approximately. So it's approximately, because we're rounding, and how did I get that? Ooh, not good angle. Okay, that's a little better. So if you look at my calculator, when I did my square root, you got your 13 and then you have all of this loveliness. If I'm rounding to the 1000th, that is the third decimal place right here, I need to look at the next part. It's a 7. So since it's a 7, meaning if it's 5 and above, we're going to give it a shove. That means we're going to add 1 to the previous slot. So since it's a 7, we're going to add 1 to the 1. That's why it's a 2. If I were to round to the 100th, that's where the 6 is, I need to look at the thousands. And the thousands is follows the rule of 4. If it's 4 below, you leave it alone. Okay? So that means it's a 1. We do not do anything. So we basically take from 1 down, cancel all that stuff out, and you just focus on the 96. If I need to round this to the 10th spot, okay, not tens, 10th spot, I need to look in the hundreds. If it's 5 and above, which it is, it's a 6. So that means I'm adding 1 to the 9. And this is the part that throws a lot of people. If I add 1 to the 9, it'll make it 10. So that means I'm adding the 1 to the 3. And I'm bringing down my 0 in the 10th spot. So this is actually going to be 14.0. Okay. All right. Okay. 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 All right. So this is how we're doing. Okay. Right. All right. Thank you, Jack Kingston. Appreciate that. What are these questions for? So anyone that's getting their GED, ASVAB, Accuplacer, TEAS test, HESI test. Now you should have, as soon as you guys sign in, it should give you a listing of what this live is for. Okay. All right. Okay. I know. Been doing this for a while. Hey Angela, how are you? Did the 1 turn into a 2 because it was closest to 7? Yes. Anything that's 5 and above, let me see if I can angle it off a little bit better. Actually, let's see if this works. Okay. Is that blinding you guys? Alright, so if it is a 5 or above, so that means 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If it falls in that category, that means we're going to add 1 to the previous slot. Okay, it's rounding up, so you're going up the line. So that's why you would change that 1 to a 2. If I was rounding to, oops, so sorry. If I was rounding to the hundredth spot, I'm looking at the thousandth spot, and the thousandth spot, it's a 1. So if it falls in the category of 4, 3, 2, 1, or 0, that means I'm not touching this 6. That means from this 1 all the way down, it's going to be exit out, and it stays the same. So it's like 5 and above, give it a shove. 4 and below, leave it alone. Alright? Okay, not a problem. Okay. So this is what we're doing. So a little bit, well thank you Jack. So a little bit of, as I'm blinding you, a little combination of things. So you were just thinking, alright, it's Pythagorean Theorem, not a problem. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. I've heard it so many times before. So, but this is just for me to break it down a little bit. Because Pythagorean Theorem is in your GED. And that's a 4-point question. So I'm trying to, especially for those that are taking the GED, the ASVAB, you know you're doing well if you see Pythagorean Theorem. Let's just put it that way. Okay? You're doing well. That means you're past that 31 threshold. So in order to get closer to that 31, you have to know your adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, fractions, decimals, percents, knowing your distance, rate, and time, your age word problems, also solving the equation, how to solve one-step, two-step, multi-step equation, distributive property. Okay, so if you can get to those and then you start seeing Pythagorean Theorem, that means you're doing really good. Okay, if you are taking your GED or a high school equivalency test, like all the exam questions are not the same point value. You're going to have 1 point, 2 point, 3 point, 4 point questions. Now your 4-point questions is going to be, yes, Pythagorean Theorem, anything dealing with slope, the equation of the line, graphing equation of the line, system of equations, factoring. Factoring is huge in both of them. Dealing with factoring, dealing with volume, surface area. Those are 4-point questions. And if you just missed your GED by like 12 points or less, it's because you skipped all of those 4-point questions. The way the test is designed is you need to just get 3 of them. So if you feel like, let me focus a lot on slope and the equation of the line, do it. Let's learn a little bit of the factoring problems. If you can get one of those bad boys done, awesome. And if you do well with all the other basic math, the arithmetic, you're going to pass. That's how they organize it, okay? But don't let the concept of word problems throw you off, all right? Okay, find a great track. Awesome, good. So here's my thing. It's nice to have the refresher. On my lives, I go back and forth with a lot of things. But if you feel like I need something to start from the very beginning, like I love your lives, but baby girl, it's 4:30 in the morning, you know? Or like, don't you come in the afternoons or all this other stuff? That's one of the factors and one of the reasons why I designed this book called Algebra at Your Pace. So it's basically designed for People that are getting your GED, the ASVAB, the TEAS test, Accuplacer, or if you just need a refresher. Okay, so if you have a kid that hasn't touched a book all summer and they're about to go back to school, this will be a great thing for them. Because what I do, it's not just a regular workbook. There's a QR code that gives you a listing of all the videos that I have here, and then you can write your notes. You can give you a place for write all the practice problems, but then I give you some extra practice problems. So it's like getting me as a tutor for a major fraction of the price. So it talks on all concepts from integers, solving equations, ratios, proportions, the Pythagorean Theorem, also mean, median, mode, and range, as well as standard deviation, looking at how to break down square roots. All of that is listed, but they're broken down into small segments, and it is a progression. Okay, this stuff is the hardest? Yes. What we were just doing with the Pythagorean Theorem? Yes. That'll be the most challenging. But each of the books in the back, you get reference pages. So what are the most popular words that they use to represent certain terms in word problems? So you can translate the word problems into algebraic expressions or equations a lot easier. Okay, the order of operations, US, international. Okay, some people know it as BODMAS. All right, so then you have the properties of exponents. We kind of worked on some of these today. All right, the rules for integers, just in case you can't keep track of all those. All right, so where can you get it? There is a link in my bio, and I'm going to show you in a sec. So remember, we were trying to look at all the different squares and square roots. I got it all listed here. Okay, so it kind of walks you through it, and then here's the factors. This factor, thank you, Kevin. This factor, all of these are the list of factors for different things. You can use this to break down those radicals. Remember that 108? Well, let's kind of go to 108. And let me zoom up for you. All right, so we were trying to figure out the factors of 108 to break it down. So you have 1 and 108, you have 2 and 56, you have 3 and 63, 4 and 27. Okay, a lot of us was giving us 9 and 2. Notice what's in red. What's in red is that perfect prime combination that you can use to break down the square root of 8. So if I want to do the square root of 112, I would use 7 and 16. Square root of 16 is a perfect square root, which gives me 4. And the 7 is prime. Boom. Okay? So that kind of breaks a lot of those concepts down. And then some of them, I give you flashcards. So for this one was for solving. So what happens, I give you some extra practice, but then you can possibly match it to these answers. So it's a little matching game. Okay, and then of course at the very end I do give you an answer key for those matching cards. So a lot of these is a total of 10. So where do you go to get this? You can go to the link in my bio as soon as I can find my phone. Yes. And here, so if you click on the picture in my bio, and then here you will see the link to my stand store. So if you just click on that, and it'll take you directly to my stand store. So if you scroll, here's another thing that's pretty cool that will help you get to my YT channel. Notice I have YT right here in between the Facebook and LinkedIn. So if I click on that and you scroll where it says TikTok Lives, Uncut Math with Audrey, all of my lives are listed here. All of them. Okay, so even if you click on it, you can go and get access to all of my lives that I've done here on TikTok, and I've been doing this for well over a year. Add that up. Okay, so give me some time to put today's on there, but here's yesterday's. We did distance, rate, and time, and before we just did some practice tests. So you can go there to get access to this. Now, and if you ever want to email me, you can email me, so you can definitely reach me if you have any kind of questions. But if you want to do like a free math checkup, I got one. That's the very first thing. If you want to see where you are mathematically, go ahead. All I do is just ask for your name and your email. That's it. Am I going to bombard you with 60 million emails? No. I'd like to know who's looking at my stuff. Okay? So then we have a little bit about tutoring if you're interested in that. But then I give you all of my downloads. So if you're not sure where to start, because I do have packages, which is the first thing that I'm showing, okay? I have some packages that is connected to a video answer key, which could actually break down step by step. How am I getting these answers, okay? So you can buy the Algebra at your pace. You can buy them individually as books. Okay, again, if you want to know what it is, just click on Get Instant Access, and you can read what's in this volume. If that sounds like something that you want, continue to scroll and then input your information. Okay, this is for the digital books. Now, if you're just like, I don't think I want to buy it yet, just hit the back arrow. Okay, you hit the back arrow and you can keep scrolling. Alright, so these are all the individual books. So we have Masters of System, okay, Factoring Polynomials, Understanding Rational, then you have Radical, Functions, Geometric, okay, Statistics and Probability. Then I got my practice problems. So you see how a lot of this stuff is here? Does anyone know how often she goes live? Every day. I thought I answered that earlier. Yep, every day. Every day I go live. Okay, but here's my thing. I don't show you everything. And if you just watch my lives, I'm going to be truthful, it's not really studying. Unless you are working out the problems, working out the problems and using the videos as answer keys. Until that, you can watch, but it's not really going to improve. Okay? Yep. And hit the bell. There you go. Do you have the paper book? I do. If you go all the way down to the very bottom, okay, you can get your physical copies of the books, but you have to buy it through the A. Now, if you purchase it through the A, each of the books is $24.99. So, whereas the digital copy that you can print out and use whatever you need is $12.99. So it's up to you, but you can get the digital copies. If I hit the shop resources, it will take you to a link in my profile, in my website, and then you can scroll, which I'll give you like a small video of, what it looks like inside, just in case you forgot. And if you want, you can always scroll and take a look at each of the volumes description, but it will take you straight to that section on the A. Okay? Alright? So if you want the paper copies, go ahead, but you can take the digital copy. It's just like getting an attachment from an email, and you just open it up and you can print it. Now, when you scan the videos that goes to each of the volumes, it's yours. Okay, it's yours to use until, I don't know, if your kids need it, maybe you might need it, so you're buying one for the house. Okay, but if you have any questions before you do any kind of purchase, please ask me. Okay, send me a message. Go ahead and hit my profile pic and just send me a message. Send me a DM and say, hey Audrey, I saw your live. I'm going to take blank test, or I'm just interested of just brushing up on my math because I know my kids are going into the blank grade and I want to be able to be on top of it. Whatever the reason, I'd rather you ask questions before you purchase, because I know it's a whole money thing, yeah, but I want you to be, this is the thing that you're going to get in order to pass that test. Like, this is it. Like, no more, okay, you can look at this PDF and you can look at this. One time, done. Do it, pass the test, move on with your life. Pass it on to your great grandkids. I don't care. But whatever is out. So, does this happen? Is it normal for me to learn then forget? That's normal, because that's what happens. When you watch videos, right now it's TikTok. You're watching for entertainment. So when you're watching for entertainment, like, oh, okay, that looks good, that looks good. But if you don't do any kind of practice to solidify it in your brain, it's gone. All you need is just one cat video, and then everything just goes completely out your head. And then all of a sudden you're like, dang, what did she say again? Where did she go? So it's the norm. If you don't practice, I know, right? But if you don't practice, and see that a lot of people say you just need to practice, but you can practice wrong too. If you're practicing based off of information that you got when you were a fetus, when you first learned this, you're gonna mix some things up. So that's why I break a lot of these concepts down, okay? Dave, this is not the platform for you. Thank you, though. As long as you break a lot of these concepts down, this is why a lot of people forget, because you didn't have anything to practice for you to say yes. And plus, that's the reason why I had the free math check. I have one person that said, Miss Audrey, this is what I got for the math check. Can you look at it? And I looked at it, and this person did well. Couple tweaks we had to do, but that's the thing. How do you know what you need to tweak unless you ask the person? Okay, so if you do the math check that I just showed you on my Stand Store, it's free. Do it to the best of your ability, and if you want, take pictures of it and then send it to me. Send it to me on the DM. I always look at the pictures. Okay, all right. It took the by 1 point. So you took which test did you take? I'm just kind of curious, Pookie. Can't remember. Okay, tell me which test you took, because then I kind of, GED? Okay, so missing it by 1 point. I need to see, if you still have your breakdown, can you send that to me? Like, send me a message of it. So, like, you know, I know we can look at the score, but was it more so... They usually give you a breakdown of, like, what you should study. So if I can take a look at that, if you can trust me with that, I would greatly appreciate that. Okay. Get so much anxiety in my class every time. When you got anxiety... Okay, thank you, Pookie. I'm either calling somebody daddy or Pookie on this thing. Okay. Alright, Angela, sorry. Going back to you. Alright, so with the anxiety, there's two things. No, right? There's two things that's happening when it comes to anxiety. It's probably how it was presented to you in the first place. Okay? How the information was presented to you. So when you were younger and you were learning algebra, I don't know, it's been a long time. If it was anything like me, I had a teacher that was like, I know the stuff. Congratulations, I don't. So can you break it down to me? That didn't happen. I didn't get a person that did that until my junior year in high school. Okay? So now, as we're breaking things down, you're trying to learn stuff, and especially when you're in the class. One, you feel intimidated because you're in that class. You feel some type of way like, oh, I'm embarrassed, I shouldn't be in this class. Forget all that. You're in the class, you're learning just like everyone else is. But the problem that happens with a lot of classes, the pace is way too fast. You don't have time for it to marinate. So then by the time you come up with the question for number 1 to ask, we're already on question 25. And you're just like, okay, I don't want to be the stupid person asking the question, so I'm going to internalize it. So what we need is a little practice. What we need is a little guidance at your pace. That's why I developed all these books. Okay? Because I remembered how I wanted to learn. I wish I had these when I was in school. Not to be conceited or like, I'm the best. This is my big book. No, I did these books because I remembered how I felt when I was learning algebra the first time. And I had teachers that were just like, oh, just sit in the back of the room and do these problems. Because we didn't have special ed back then. All right, I'm 53. So, and then all of a sudden, people didn't see my potential, but I had to show it. Because now I'm like, oh, I'm going to high school. I need to step things up. I'm finally getting teachers that kind of understand my thought process. But, right, well, you didn't pay attention at all because you didn't have someone to grab your attention. That's the thing. When you're in a class and there's like 20 something to 30, which I used to teach classes of 41. I was that teacher. When the other teacher could not take this kid because I took them in. And it's funny, they learned and they not only passed, they probably got their very first A in math ever from me. And not just because, oh, you're a little cute today, you get an A. Oh my gosh, you raised your hand today, you get an A. No, it's like we're doing work. I don't care if you're special ed, I don't care if you're general ed, I don't care if you're a freaking genius. We're all doing the work today. We're doing this. And I'm going to break it down in a way that you understand. So that's why, Angela, you didn't have someone that grabbed your attention. That's a whole thing. And all of that stems when you're going to class. It builds up and it builds up. That little inner child keeps coming out each and every class. How I know? I went through it. That's why. I only preach on what I've seen. Okay? Done a dyscalculia? Jump around when you look at them? Yes. Okay? So that's why the way that I teach, how should I put it? I swear, sometimes I feel like I'm a little too conceited, but I'm not trying to be. The way teaching is happening nowadays, especially, I love the followers, I love the creators that are on here, but some people just teach way too fast. And they think that teaching faster means I'm teaching better. No, you're losing everybody. So calm those nerves down and just break it on down. Because I felt like I was in an auction. I think it was like a couple days ago. I swear to God, I thought I was in an auction. Because God's like, here we go with the sine and cosine and all this with the sine here. And then every time you see cosine right here is a -1. And then we get the -1. Every time you see -1, -1, and -1, -1. Then we go here and then we go here. And I'm like, like I had to swipe. Because I'm like, what you're saying is awesome and it's right. But if I look on the other side of the looking glass, I would have thrown that phone across the wire. And that was actually really impressive of me. Because maybe I should be an auctioneer. Maybe I should think of that. But that's what happens. And you're already having so much stuff in your brain. You already have gifting suspended, line of reach. It's restricted. What? I don't know. I don't know why they're talking about gifts are suspended. Okay. Am I getting too many gifts? Alright, supposedly. I don't know. Supposedly my gifts are suspended. I don't know why. But that's the whole thing. There's so much, like, you don't have to gift me because I never do anything with the gifts anyway. Keep your penny. But when it comes to breaking down these concepts, it's too much. Right. It's way too fast, and you're sitting there and you don't want to be that person that's like, can you show it one more time? You know that's like social, unaliving. That's why some people internalize it. They internalize the pain, and then what happens? You quit. You give up. Don't quit. There are people out here like myself, there's tons of other people that will break down concepts step by step. So to the point that you can understand it and you can apply it. All right? Okay, but if anything, let me get off my soapbox and figure out what that thing was about. But if anything, if you need any kind of assistance whatsoever, please go ahead, send me a message. Okay? Students teach the way because they don't really know the core concepts, so they skip over it. Some teachers do. I will admit to that. I have seen some teachers do that. Some people, they just know it, but they don't know how to teach it, how to break it down to you guys. I love the ones that will be like, hey, let's do Pythagorean Theorem. And they turn their back and they're just going and going and going. And they're like, you get it? And you're like, I got a squared plus b squared plus c squared. Everything else is a blur. So, but please reach out. Tell me which test you're taking. I'd rather we have a discussion so we can develop a plan. So now you got something to be consistent with. I'd rather you do that than, oh, buy my books, and then you're buying the wrong stuff and you're just doing the extra practice problems in the books, but that's not going to help you. You need to get some of the instruction so you'll understand the shortcuts. Okay? All right. So, this was long. So sorry. So if anything, I will see you guys tomorrow, same time, 7:45 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. But if you do have a question, please reach out. I'd rather you reach out than nothing at all. Okay? All right, everyone. Have an amazing day, and I will see you